It's Wednesday, it's 5 o'clock. It's time for Geek Salad. How are you, Arj?
I'm alright, Matthew. Very good to see you. Sorry I wasn't around last week.
That's right, me and Steve had fun. Steve came up with a quiz to test my nerdy stroke geekiness. It was all quite good fun.
I'm devastated that I missed it, but I did manage to catch a bit of it on repeat. And very entertaining it was too.
Yes, it was fun. It was fun. What have you been up to this week?
Oh, the usual. I've been chasing supply and demand, the supply chains all over the shop in industry, because things get moved around the world, and because of geopolitical reasons, it's really difficult to get mahogany stain right now.
Well, I bet it is, but it's not that. It's a pandemic as well. It's affecting all sorts
There is
of
that.
things.
There is
Especially
that.
stuff coming in from China and all sorts.
Yeah, well, it goes through Europe, you know, and so it's and so
yes.
yes,
And Brexit. I forgot about Brexit. That's a thing as well, isn't it?
One that geopolitical issue.
Yeah.
That has brought anyone who is manufacturing in England various challenges, and also people who bring things in and out and manufacture even more challenges. So I've been kind of genning up on my geopolitics and putting on my top hat and monocle and pretending to be a businessman.
Oh, very good.
It's been interesting.
I've been doing that for years. I'm terrible.
Yeah, I know. Imposter syndrome, man. If you don't have it,
not a very good businessman.
No. If you don't have imposter syndrome, you're probably an imposter, right? If you don't doubt your own abilities at some point, then you're probably not doing a good job.
Not me, mate. I'm brilliant, me.
Yeah. Never make a mistake. Never make a mistake. Well, that would be Dunning-Kruger. The inability to conceive that you could be wrong. A level of intelligence that you hit that doesn't let you go any further. Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger thing?
I have not, mate, no.
Oh, well, let me... two guys get together, American guys, and they kind of come up with this idea. And there was a very famous, though you can't find it, it's disappeared in the age of the internet, film of someone in America breaking into a bank, or robbing a bank, I believe it was. And what people couldn't work out is why he didn't wear a mask, and he kept on winking at the camera, at the security cameras. It's just not what you would expect to see, right?
Right.
And so when he was, pulled up for being clearly robbing a bank and identified, it is because someone had told him that invisible ink used lemon as part of its way to become invisible. He had that little bit of information and decided, therefore, if he doused himself in lemon juice, he would therefore be invisible. He had a little bit of knowledge, but not quite enough to actually pull it off. And it's kind of...
well, that's why you don't tend to see lemon trees around here, isn't it?
You can't see them. There's loads of them, man. There's loads. If you lose a lemon, you're kind of stuffed. But that's the Dunning-Kruger thing, and it can apply to failing up in middle management and senior management. It can apply to all sorts of things. It can apply to governments. It's just, people don't realise that they don't have the knowledgeable capability to realise they're being stupid.
Yes.
Anyway, hi.
We've all been there. You're listening to Geek Salad with Matt and Ige on this rather dull Wednesday afternoon.
It's grey out there, isn't it?
Unless you listen to the repeat, and then it's probably a rather dull whatever other day we're on. Well, we haven't got much for topics this week, so if anyone wants to text in with their tech questions, that would be good. The number is...
text 07762
Didn't mean to click that one. Never mind.
What was this?
068. That's
That's Gideon B. Hawking the third.
07762 208 068.
I'll do the other one.
Okay. And so our QC's working really well at the moment, man.
Text 07762 208 068. That's 07762 208 068.
Or you can email live at bigbubble.uk and it pops up right here in our little virtual studio.
Now that first weird jingle there, I can't let it go, man. I can't let it go. I don't care how it happened, where it came from. Yeah. But if the late Stephen Hawking was still alive and you just swapped that ROM, that would discombobulate the conversation about time and space, wouldn't it?
That's Gideon B. Hawking the third. Is it
really?
He's a bluesman, yes.
Oh.
He's a bluesman. He lives in the Thames Delta.
Wow.
Yeah, he has a backstory.
Excellent news. Oh, I look forward to
No.
hearing it. So, what you been up to then? Have you done anything?
I have spent the whole morning dealing with an email server that I tried to upgrade, and I thought all that. So I upgraded a server and thought, oh, that's fine. I thought I'd do it at 5 o'clock this morning when I saw there was an update available. Went back to sleep for a bit and then realised I didn't have any email. Fortunately, it was mostly my email servers and not too many other people's. But yeah, so I had no email all morning, and then I realised it just made a mess, really. And I don't like configuring email servers. They're a pain in the what's it. They would be very simple. They're a pain in the
IMAP.
In the IMAP, in the simple message transport protocol.
Has it really changed that much? Is it just ultimately there's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer until you get the message on Facebook, but underneath it, is it not the same protocol?
It's the same protocols. What's changed in the last 20 years is that everyone's gone from POP, which is the post office protocol, which was like, that's where it would download the servers to one account, and that was it.
And that's the one people remember typing pop.tiscali.com.
Yes. Which was rubbish because you could only get your email on one thing, and once you download it to a machine, it had gone off the server, and that was your lot. To IMAP,
the reverse of the cloud.
Yes, whereas IMAP's like a dynamic thing. IMAP is not actually strictly a mail protocol. I think you can use it for other things. Internet Message Access Protocol is what it is. That means you can do multiple things with it, and once nothing gets deleted till you tell it to delete.
And so in essence, it's backing up by the nature of you looking at it.
Yeah, but you want more than one client, don't you? These days, you've got a mobile phone and your desktop computer and probably a laptop, so you want all your email to look the same wherever you are. Well, this is different from the cloud email. This is if you're using your own servers.
Yes, absolutely.
Or accessing your own server. Not much has changed in terms of the protocols. What has changed is the security that's used to access them, because everything used to be sent in plain text. Now you do it over secure connections.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that is the biggest pain, and this is the reason I hate adminning mail servers, is spam. Spam is a bloody nightmare.
Spam.
I mean, it makes up like over a third of traffic, or it makes on the internet. At one point, I don't think it does now.
Certainly in mail traffic.
Way more than that. It's the majority of mail traffic, absolutely.
And it's a frightening amount of energy.
And it's a pain. It's a pain all the way around, because you've got to. Not only have you got to filter out spam coming from people, you've got to make sure the stuff you send out is legit. So
yes, you can end up in spam folders for no reason whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. It's a real pain. A couple of weeks back, I got Hotmail decided they didn't like me anymore for some reason.
Feelings mutual, man.
Well, but so that was not just Hotmail, that was Live.com, that was Microsoft, for no reason at all.
So it started bumping you into the junk.
With no recourse to anything either. And I ended up having to reconfigure the server and move it to a different IP. And you might say, well, that's silly. It's only Outlook. Well, that's Outlook, Microsoft.com, Live.com.
That's a whole heap of stuff. That's a whole heap of products
that you can no longer communicate with, because these companies take it on themselves that they are the flipping internet police.
Yes, indeed, you do.
And you've got no recourse at all. None.
Yeah. And now, of course, spam itself, I'm not sure whether to discuss this on the show, but actually you can archaeologically dig through the news groups of old and see the moment it was born. When someone starts riffing, of course, on Monty Python. Mm-hmm. The reason spam is called spam is not because it's been given post-acronymisms, but it is simply the Monty Python sketch. And you can see people on the chat group accidentally bouncing something, and then people start going spam.
So when you're dealing with spam, you actually categorise it into spam and ham. And that's what you do. So if you've got something like a Bayesian thing that will be learning so you can. So if something comes in and it's passed its checks, but it's clearly spam, which can happen for all sorts of reasons. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's obvious things you do. Like you check the first thing you do is you check that the server it's coming from is actually a legitimate mail server and not just some thing that's popped up on the internet for 30 seconds and spat and shat out a load of emails. Yeah. That's the first thing you can try. But then it's easy to set up a thing. So or it can be hijacked someone else's account. So it gets rid of a fair bit, but not all of it by any means. So then you can do things like there's lots of other things you can do. You can put signatures in your email and DNS servers that you can verify against. But at the end of the day, you're then down at that point to scanning through and looking for spammy terms. And we then have things called RBLs, which are real-time black holes, which are servers that run on the internet. So if you get a load of spam from someone, you run part of these things that are called real-time black holes, and they will look at things like Spam House, and they will look at databases and go, that's a spam email. We've had loads of spam from this today. Yeah. And this maintains a list, and we'll start blocking servers and things. Right. And then you have your Bayesian stuff, which is basically looking through them and going, that looks like spam to me. What's the odds of it being spam? And that will learn, which is why you have your spam and your ham, because you can have a ham folder which you can also train to go, that is actually a legitimate email, and this is a load of crap.
So we're basically machine learning.
Yeah, well, machine learning, yeah.
Yeah, from spam to ham. And not the only thing that Monty Python had influenced, of course, the language, Python,
Python, oh yes. Or
named after
yes.
Monty Python.
Yes.
And I believe that
My least favourite language, Python. I really don't like programming.
Well, yeah, that's because it's not for you. I mean, I struggle
Well,
because I'm
it is
dyslexic,
kind of a
but-
scripting language, but the reason I don't like it is one of purely syntax. It uses
spaces, doesn't it?
yeah, it uses indentation. I don't think it's the first language to use indentation for as its program blocks, but I find it really. It's not easy to read at a glance, I don't find. And I'm sure people who program Python all the time will utterly disagree with me.
Absolutely.
And so it's much
it's what
better
you're
than,
comfortable with.
than curly braces all over the shop.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, or me copying and pasting.
But yes, but I don't find it very hard.
No, but it's
quite hard to
and
read.
I believe is its compiler called Idle because of Eric Idle.
I don't know. It could well be. I mean, Python's interpreted as a rule, but I'm sure there are compilers for it.
I'm just wondering how many other comedy troupes have influenced the internet so much as your Monty Python.
Probably not. Well, we're a funny old lot, us computer sciencey types.
It is odd, isn't it, how these words become well grail, if you will, quaff quaff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just born out of computer guys. Well, what we're going to call it? You know, you've got to call it something, man.
You've got to have a funny acronym or
Yeah.
something that isn't an acronym. That's,
I mean, the mouse is a pointer device. It's a mouse because it looks a bit like a mouse, right? Could have called it a rat, could have called it a turtle. But turtles were already there, weren't they? Because turtles were little things that you could program in, what was the name of that old language? Logo. Go left, go right, Mr. Turtle.
Yeah, well, you can still get turtles in schools and things, but Lego's still kind of used.
Yeah.
It's it's an interesting little language.
But it's kind of grown into, I guess, things like Scratch now.
Scratch would be the thing that most
Yeah.
primary schools would use, certainly.
I think it's great, though. I think if you can...
And
I
Python
think-
is taught in secondary, I believe.
Yeah, it makes sense. But Scratch, I think, is strongest from working in schools. When you combine it with the real world rather than the screen, and when you use it with motors and servos and inputs and outputs. There's something more visceral about it than if you're making a cat move from X to Y on a screen, I find. It introduces kids to a bigger world of what they can do, potentially using language and engineering.
Yeah.
And it's never too early to start learning that stuff because it's absolutely fascinating.
No, I mean, it's always been an argument of mine that, going back, you had your home computers and whatnot, but everyone's has an interpretive code in there. Every web browser has a JavaScript engine in it, which is a flipping power. JavaScript is so powerful now.
Absolutely.
It started off as a scripting language. Now you can write. I write in JavaScript all the time. What great swathes of applications.
And the point to entry as well, which has always been something that has, I was never growing up with bags of money. And so, for instance, the point of entry to buying a computer when I was 14 or 15 was probably about 300, 400 quid. Which would just be unheard of in what I
it's a
could
lot
bring.
of money, isn't it?
But if you find a skipped PC that you can, and get yourself something working on it, you can get yourself an Arduino or similar programmable board or a Pi.
Yeah.
If you've got a monitor, you can get change out 20 quid, right, or 30 quid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a point of entry, even in these difficult times, that is quite exciting for people who are interested to actually give it a go. Demystify it a little bit. Demonstrate
the Raspberry Pi is certainly a good bit of kit for the money. It's cool.
It is.
You plug it into a tel anywhere you go. I mean, it takes after we were saying earlier. It's the 40th anniversary of the BBC Micro this week, isn't it?
Well, last week actually.
Last week
it was 40. The BBC microcomputer, the computer that we decided to make for England, was indeed 40, and first speech synthesizer that used sampled speech was in the BBC
there was all
micro.
sorts of firsts on there.
And here's a little fact: the person whose voice it was newsreader Kenneth Kendall.
Oh, there you go.
So there's a fact. You never wanted to know it. You'll never have to know it. But it was
Very good.
Kenneth Kendall.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got two. I have a BBC Master and a BBC B outside there. If you plug them in, if anyone comes across a BBC Micro these days that hasn't been turned on for 20 years, if you plug it in and turn it on, it will go bang.
Yes.
it will. There's no, unless someone's been to it and fixed it. Fortunately, it doesn't do any harm, but it will stink your lounge out, and it's quite terrifying.
What is that? The power supply? Is it?
In the power supply, there's a particular type of capacitor that just doesn't.
Yes. Things that don't go well. Things that don't go well.
Yes, they need to be replaced before you turn it on. It will actually turn on. It will turn on. It will make the pleasant BBC beep noise, and then it will go.
Oh man, that's just cruel. That's just mean. So you
Yeah.
get your one last joy before it explodes.
But it's only
after
like,
that
it's only like a
£4 wait
£1
on
part.
eBay.
But it's much easier to fix before you blow it up, as a rule.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I was very lucky to get my old man managed to scramble enough to get a Acorn Electron.
Oh wow, which was its little brother, really.
It was his little brother, and there were certain compatibility issues, but you could still
They were.
kind of.
It still had BBC Basic.
It did have BBC Basic, which is what I hacked away with, typing from magazines and
Very
working
well
out how this
respected
stuff
Basic
worked.
as well. It was very good Basic, BBC Basic.
Yeah.
Beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code.
A whole man to know it, just to know that. Yeah, wonderful stuff, man. And retrograde programming now, it's so much easier to achieve something that looks so much better, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and I was talking of the Raspberry Pi. This lineage kind of goes back to that as well. So the original designers of the Raspberry of the BBC Micro, which I think was based on the 6502, was it 6502 and the BBC
Are we going
Micro?
Army here? Are we talking about ARM?
We're talking about ARM, yeah. So
Yes.
they then became Acorn. Well, the Acorn then came out with the Archimedes, which was the next generation of like almost sort of more. Well, they were 16-bit computers.
Yeah, this is very much Cambridge, Silicon Valley,
Yes,
isn't
but
it? The
it's
British
Cambridge
Silicon Valley.
But at this point, you had Acorn, which were then making their own silicon, and they diverged in that they were doing reduced instruction set silicon, which uses less
there was
instructions.
some squabbles internally with Sinclair about this.
No, for the BBC, because Sir Clive got very upset because he wouldn't his machine wasn't up to scratch, if I remember correctly.
That's it. Yeah, the BBC decided not to go with the flashy.
Although his were a lot cheaper, and
or ZX81.
the thing was that yeah, I mean his would have. I think his one would have been a lot cheaper, but then they were built like tanks, though, the BBCs.
And you can't say that about Sinclair's stuff.
No, I mean maybe they. I don't know if. But yes, the whole ARM architecture comes from that. I mean, it's no longer a British concern. It has been for many years. But every single phone you have, virtually all phones,
Every device, practically.
pretty much every device that's not a, like a simple microcontroller is running on ARM. On that same, which can trace
Same
its roots
architecture
right back
from the BBC.
Yeah.
So,
but the genius of ARM was that what they did, they didn't become a chip fab. So they weren't fabricating chips. What they were doing was they were selling people designs. So you could basically, and even now, if you want to say like Apple's got their processors, they're making their own processors. Well, they'll all be based on ARM, and there'll be a certain amount of licensing to ARM, and they'll say, right, we want 20 ARM cores in this processor, and they will literally drop them on from a CAD package, which then goes to a chip fab to be made.
That's amazing.
I'm simplifying them massively, but that's the
but
essence
in
of
principle, that's what's happening. Now, the ARM chip, for people, it's just kind of like a processor chip, right? It's a chip that does stuff. Now, there's a guy who's got a what they call it, a pacemaker. A very sort of modern, clever, complicated pacemaker from about 6 or 7 years ago, who worked, I don't know his name, but he worked very directly on the ARM project, and now has that chip inside of his own body, keeping him alive.
Wow.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Mm-hmm. He was part of the team who built that, and now it's actually saving his life. I just think that's a very interesting thing to have built.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you think that ARM is 36 years old? ARM actually stands for Advanced Risk Machines. That's what it originally stood for. I think it's one of those acronyms that's kind of got lost now. But yeah. Oh no! So originally, it was Advanced Risk Machines, and before that, it was Acorn Risk Machines. That's what they were called.
They can be flexible with their acronyms.
Yeah.
My favourite being Wine.
Wine is not an emulator. Yes, the Unix crowd like their little recursive acronyms. Yes. There's quite a few of them around. Yes. So that was there. What did we get into that? It was BBCs and ARM and microprocessors at home. But yes, no, you've got a programming language in every web browser. There's one.
Yeah, they've got a BBC simulator on an app somewhere.
There's some great BBC simulators that will fire up a BBC. There's for everything now. I mean, MAME is great as well. Multi-machine arcade emulator. It's brilliant because it will emulate most types of hardware, so you can emulate all the home computers on that, which is lovely.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, but there's you can play all the BBC stuff. I was going to say something then actually about emulators.
I think the first time I ever saw a digital moving image on a screen would have been on the BBC B, and it would have been probably tape uploaded, and there were two of them. There was an American flag blowing in the wind in dots of green and black, and there was a clip from Star Wars, which I saw, and I thought, oh my God, the future's here.
Right.
We're going to have these one day. You know, it's amazing. And of course, anyone born after when was the iPhone? Was that 99?
Oh, I think it was a little later than that. What are we on now? It might be 2000
Or 2000 or something.
I think the iPhone is 10, 12 years old, isn't it?
Yeah. So I know that Facebook's an angry, errant older teenager going through an awkward stage at the moment, but it's always been a bit of a terror. And Google is well in its 20s.
I'm just wondering when the first 2008.
Oh, really? I was well off.
Yeah, well off. Yeah.
Well off, Squire. We was in flip phones. We were having all sorts
That's
of
right.
phone combos.
It's all moved very rapidly. That's why you think it's longer than it is, because it's come on so much.
Yeah, well,
And then
keep on
sort of
taking
ground to a
advantage.
halt as well, if you like. I think. Yeah.
Technology has plateaued a little bit, hasn't it?
Well, the thing is, I don't think it's so much plateaued as serves its purpose. And
yeah, build a
how
better
much more?
mousetrap.
Yeah, how much more? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like how much more do you need? I told you, we were talking a couple of weeks ago. I upgraded my main computer for the first time in like 8, 9, 10 years, and am I bowled over with it? Not really.
No, it's just doing the same job but quicker.
Yeah.
There was the adage that people were saying that the technology that took us to the moon, you've all got in your pocket now, referring to mobile phones, and the computer scientists at the time said, well, yeah, but if you're talking about that thing that opens your car. So, he said, no, your mobile phones will blow our stuff away. No, yeah, the bipper to open your car, that's about what we had, yeah. It was very economical use. Just like I was, do you remember the Amiga boot-up screen with the amazingly bad drawn hand?
Yeah.
And the badly drawn hand and the Amiga, well, there you go. Well, that was directly bit bashed. Because they hadn't actually sort of come up with any graphics software per se. So effectively, it was punched in like a knitting machine from graph paper, and all of their renders for any releases were taken directly from a screen and sent to a photographer. It was like hackneyed old stuff, but it's not a bad drawing of a hand considering.
Yeah. Talk about the Mars thing. Talk about. Were you talking money there, weren't you?
I talk about money. I do quite
a stark figure that I saw earlier, and I'm this is not well researched actually, but was it something? The track and trace cost 37 billion, and the Mars program cost 2.7, and one was in pounds sterling and one was in US dollars.
Oh, for goodness sakes! Really? I don't understand this stuff. Did you? There was a viral thing of someone trying to make a really clear metaphor and mucking it up, and in the American Senate about that. Each dollar is X thin, but his numbers were just that. I just said, dude, you lost me. I know when I was on a journey to London once, and I did do that lazy man's math, that I believe that in about a year, if you travelled to London and Whitstable and back 7 days a week, I think it's the moon. I think it's the moon. I think it is. I think it's close.
Yeah, sorry, test and trace cost 37 billion. Right, there we go.
37 billion, that's 37 million.
Did I say track and trace? That's a Royal Mail service, isn't it? Test and trace.
Yeah, track and trace, man. They're hemorrhaging money. Wow. Yeah, man. I've seen these new Amazon vehicles about now. The black with the orange sinister smile. Great logo.
They've got their own fans. I bet there's some bit of tech on there as well, in a googly sense. I bet there's something.
There's something going on. Something going on in there. Tinted windows. There's no driver. It's just some kind of manifestation of some Cronenbergian experiment in there, man. It's technically human.
They'll be retina scanning all the pedestrians and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's what we need. That's what we're looking for in our AI future.
Yeah.
They
strange chap that Bezos. He sort of went from looking like in the late 90s. He looks like a sort of your everyman geek. And then he sort of turned into Dr. Evil, didn't he?
No, he looks like what it would look like if you were cruel enough to remove a shell from a tortoise. Yeah. Which I do not advocate in any way, shape or form. And also, weirdly...
Not after last time.
No, you learn. And your Zuckerberg, and I don't know why people aren't picking up more on it, is he reminds me completely of your Muppet Show Beaker. Me. I don't know why people can't see it.
Yeah,
I just see it. As soon as I see that, I see him. I can't. When you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
No, right.
Yeah, he's going, me, like that when he talks.
Oh, yeah. Should we play a song?
I think we should really. Yeah, we can yadder him for a while.
You're hammering on for a bit. Okay, let's do that. You're More Music Station. Double radio.
Spoken word. This future.
762 208 068 07762 208 068.
Thank you, Frank. And Frank and George will be on the chip shop tomorrow evening.
They could make
that's
Beige
what I'm
exciting,
talking about. They won't be on the chip shop. They'll be having their own show.
Really?
For heaven's sake. Yes, the Sims
this
Brothers
is
show.
news. Tell me more.
It's their second outing. They will be regaling us with tales of rock and roll.
Well, that sounds
over the years
fantastic.
with many famous people, and it's a good show. Yeah. So that will be good. Let's tune into that on a Friday evening.
I will.
Just before Mr. Dan Swag.
Swag.
That's that. That was Polly Jane Harvey with "Rid of Me" from the album "Rid of Me" from 1992.
The titular
probably.
track.
Yeah, it was good. What else have we going on? There's a nice little article this morning. The Register, which is a little favourite sort of what would you call an online news site? An online news site.
A news aggregator.
A news aggregator. Well, yeah, they're their own thing. They're just online. Well, everything's online now, isn't it? So the Register is like a little tech journal for techie types, computery types and whatnot. And it's very respected, LReg. And they had a little survey to see whether they should keep using the term hacker in relation to criminality, because it's often been a bugbear of mine, but something that I've just got used to over the years. Like, a hacker is
the term itself, hacker.
Yeah,
Hacker. You're
because
hacking. You're breaking
you're
the
hacking,
law.
You're breaking the law, but that's not where it originated and not what it means. And I hack on stuff all day. It's just about wrangling bits to make them do what you want to do.
Hacking away.
Criminality
at it.
should not be implied there at all.
Now, when so how?
But
does
I think
how
that. Do you
did it
not think
become
that bird has flown though? Do you not think that cat is out of the bag?
They have life hacking skills, you know.
Well, that's true, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose from that point of view, it's come back round as well, isn't it? Yeah, because you never would have said
it's
that.
become
before.
a softer word in the general public. I managed to hack this together, which is where it's from. But to being the film Hackers, for instance, that proves that you must never ever in any film ever list the current latest hardware, because it's going to become hilarious in 18 months thanks to Moore's law, and even more hilarious in
30
increasing
years.
years. My God.
I still like that film. I still like that film, though.
You like that film? It's called Hackers. You see, there is
it's got a very young Angelina Jolie in it.
There's very good reasons to like that film, and but in the term of hacking being used as legally insinuating something might be bad or good, right? Yeah. You've always had the term of black hat and white hat, have you not? In the hacking community.
Yeah, in the hacking community, yes. Well, in the security community, you call it the security community. I think is a more sensible way of doing that. Yeah. So you can have black hats, you can have white hats, you can have grey hats.
Oh, grey hats. Now, grey hats being what, the hobbyists, the undecideds, the agnostics.
Grey hats, they're just neither on the offensive nor the defensive, really. I think
the Methodists.
That's the way you should look. You look at black hats. Black hats can be criminal, but it also implies that you would be on an offensive security team. So if I was a black hat,
you're actively trying to break something.
Yeah. So they also have things called like you call yourself red team or blue team as well. So in order to test the security of something, you would be on a red team doing an offensive, and in order to defend against it, you'd be on the blue team doing an offensive. And you could say one was white hat or black hat.
So you black hat on the blue team.
I think black hat does have a sort of connotation of some illegality, or if not criminality, then possibly.
Well, I'm going to put it to you again that the just the use of that word and the polarization of black and white, although of course it exists in the yin and the yang, and they are opposites to each other since Hollywood, which is a creation of 19th and early 20th century European immigrants mainly. The hats were obviously referencing cowboys being the bad cowboy had a black hat, the good cowboy had a white hat. Let's cut to the chase here, shall we? We keep on saying bad, black, white, good. Now, isn't that just a weird coincidence? And it's, you know, I mean, there could be an argument for or against it, but it's just something that's always struck me.
That's true. It is true. That is yes, and even in those terms, yes. When you say it like that, it does seem a bit.
Yeah.
A little
Okay,
incorrect.
or are you framing the past in the today's eyes, or is it quite simply that I would think the former rather than the
Well, I
latter
don't know because I
myself.
mean, if we're getting this is beyond the scope of this program, but if we're going to
This
go
is
down
true. We're
this road,
talking about opinions and.
but
frankly,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could
white
argue
male
that
people
black
shouldn't be
merely
talking
implies the absence of light, and therefore that's a sort of
Oh,
fundament.
yes. How dark is the
If you
slow
don't
of-
bring race into it at all,
Yeah.
and you're just talking, you know, like so. Yes. So,
nothingness versus a somethingness.
so darkness and light rather than black and white.
I hope you're right. But it's just something that's kind of jarred me throughout the years. You know.
Yes, it's a valid point. Can we get on to something less?
Yes, it's less heavy, man. Yeah,
heavy.
we're treading off the rails a little bit. Let's get a bit lighter. LEDs, they're lighter.
They are. Yes. What else has happened this week?
It's the lightest thing you can
tech-wise. Not much. It's all been a very run-of-the-mill, dull tech week for me, really, on the whole. Oh, I've upgraded the pub. That's been fun, actually.
Okay.
So the virtual pub is now running on mobile devices without any other software. Yay!
Through the browser, my goodness
Through the
me.
browser, which means it's got a very low barrier to entry. now.
Zoom's gonna hate you, man.
Well, there we go.
What you gotta do?
And it's improved for bandwidth. It's been improved for, so again, what I thought would be a simple upgrade took me 9 hours due to some broken packages. Anyway,
Yes, it happens.
it happens. I got
Okay,
there.
okay, well,
I wrote extensive notes, but the thing was I was doing it not just for the pub, but for the radio station because it uses the same video conferencing technology. I wanted to know what I was doing by experimenting on the virtual pub.
I was being your
So I could then-
being your number 2 at one point, and I believe that you've saved significant bandwidth that people don't quite understand.
It's not down to it's down to the guys who write the software. Because I mean I haven't really looked at that since when we set up the station. So that was April last year, March or April last year. So there's a whole year of development been going on, and it's a whole year of development going on when the demand for video conferencing has been unprecedented, and people have been sat with nothing to do. So they've hacked on that code a lot, and they've done a lot to it.
So it's had 2 million man hours on it, basically.
It's had loads on it. Yeah.
The hive mind making it better.
Yeah, the irony being that the bugs that threw me up were the same bugs that were there 12 months ago, but just in a slightly different guise,
Yeah,
and
come
everything
on.
else, and they were even worse because everything else had moved on, but the bugs hadn't. So that was that's what tripped me up. But anyway, I will do slightly obscure things with things, won't I? So that's what.
Well,
And that's
you look into
the bit of
things,
software
Matthew.
I'm talking about is called Jitsi, and you can go to it online, and it's better than Zoom because it's free. And they host it all for you. If you just go to Jitsi and start a meeting, it's much easier to use than Zoom. But if you're a nerd like me, you can hack on it. There's that term again. Run it on your
they
own
allow
servers
you
and
to
use
play
it for
with
your
it.
own thing, or say I don't know, build a radio station around it, something like that. You know,
And it's not
that's-
then they kind of get on your back for doing it, is it?
No, because this is open source software, and this is the beauty of open source software and the hacking ethos that you can do these things. You know, you couldn't hack on Zoom. You'd have a hell of a job. You wouldn't be able to do it. You couldn't hack on Microsoft Teams. You can't bend it to your will to do what you want. You can't integrate it with other things, not easily.
You're in a walled garden. You're in a walled garden.
Yeah.
So even pressing the advanced button could be termed as hacking.
Well, yeah. So, but whereas this, the code's yours to do as you want with. You can, as long as you put it back if you release anything, you know, and embed that, and they actually make inroads for you to expand upon it and do what you will with it.
I think that
Which is
the open
marvellous.
source community is an incredible thing. I think that WordPress has come along in leaps and bounds, and the whole idea of people working together to provide something that is not freemium, but something you can actually base your own work on as long as you share it is a marvelous thing. Until you bottle it up, pretend it's yours, and flog it. And then
Well, I mean,
the whole thing breaks.
that's what licensing agreements are for,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you know. But there's ways to make money out of open source software. I've never really found one myself, but there are. You know, companies like Red Hat. I mean, all the software that they produce is released and is free eventually. Well, there's a bit of controversy about that at the moment, but they but if you want reliable servers, you'll pay Red Hat for their expertise and and their
for
integration
consultancy and what have you.
and their turnkey solutions and their consultants, and that's how they
and
will
you
make
get a
their money.
fantastic product for it as well.
And you get a fantastic product for it. And all eyeballs can see it as well, which is the other thing that you don't get with closed source software. I mean, there's arguments on both sides. You can say, like, if you've got a million pairs of eyes looking at a piece of code, they will find a fault in it. But they might,
Factually, yeah, you will,
Yeah.
if you're looking, you'll find something.
you'll find something. But it's a double-edged sword, because so you could take something like some Microsoft code and you could like fuzz test it, which is basically throwing crap at it until it falls over. Right, whereas you go the other way. You could never look at the source code to see what's happening. You could just guess that something might go wrong and go on it. But then if you find a 0 day for that, what you're going to do? Report it to Microsoft, probably, if you find an exploit, or you'll sell it on the black market to someone.
Of course, yeah. Well, you're either black hat or white hat.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So, whereas on the open source community, you're more likely to someone sees a bug, they're more likely to fix it or report it. And then it be fixed. I mean, there's arguments for both sides of it. Whereas I could, of course, sit there and go through the Linux kernel with a fine-tooth comb looking for exploits and then not tell anyone I'd done that. But, you know...
People as a rule are nice, which is another curious thing. You know, people as a rule are. Now, I remember it's all about ownership, of course. CompuServe and the GIF.
I think I still owe them £800 from 1998.
Well, come on, man, recycle some of those CDs. But the GIF or GIF. The graphical...
I always say GIF, but it should be GIF, really.
Yeah, who knows? But didn't they make a play...
Or should it be GRIF? It's Graphics Interchange Format is what it stands for.
So GWIF.
So GRIF.
GWIF or GIF.
GIF.
GWIF.
Apparently the guy who invented it said it's GIF.
So it's GIF.
So it's GIF. But
It's GIF. That sounds
wrong
wrong,
to me.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's GIF, isn't it? Sorry, man, who invented it. You can't own... You're not giving your own nickname, man. It is burdened you from the world. I just asked Gareth Hunt, man.
And that was popularised by CompuServe, actually, wasn't it? No.
It was, but they actually made a monetarisation play at one point in the burgeoning internet, that they were going to attempt to take a 0.1p off everyone for every GIF that was theirs, because it was their product, you know, it was their thing. It was closed source, but didn't work out so well. It was just like, it's not going to happen. No. And
what's the point of a closed source image format? It's a bit bizarre.
It's just nonsense.
Now, here's a bit of bridging. It's nonsense, isn't it? Like,
yes, but here's a bit of bridging technology. The flawed brilliance that is Alan Sugar, man. The guy who had it but didn't know what it was. You know, I've got a big fan in ways of Mr. Sugar. But he tried to monetize texting and emailing a little bit late, and came up with a fantastic pile of nonsense. Do you remember it?
The Amstrad emailer.
Yeah, and it was only like 10p. Email.
I think what he was trying to do was he was trying to monetize and popularize it. It was becoming popular, but it had been an open standard. But I think his idea was, you're not going to buy a computer, you're going to have one of these in your house, and this is what Granny and Grandad will use.
Yes, and they will be on the. Be able to get your emails and your texts. It's like a super pager.
Yeah, I wonder what they.
Well, how much
I wonder how much money they made at the time. Not much.
Not much. No.
Well, I did know a couple of people who had them, just because people with perfectly good computers as well. I don't know why.
Because I know it's weird, isn't it? But I love that. Just jumping on it a little bit too late. It's like there's someone still trying to sell pages.
But he was always trying to do stuff like that. Now I've got a bit of a soft spot for Amstrad stuff, because it was my first computer, and I like the technology, and it was at a good price point, and they did some really neat things with it, and it was better than the Spectrum. I'm going to get shot for that, but it was.
It was undeniably both better build and.
But then he'd do really strange things, like do you remember have you ever see a 3-inch disc?
Oh yes,
that was him.
That was.
And
let's just go with a different
because they also had so they had the Amstrad CPC, which was the Homeland. Then they had the PCW. Do you remember the PCW? That was a word processor.
Yes, I
do. It looked like a sort of black and white telly with a keyboard on the front of it.
It was like a terminal.
And a disk drive in the front. It was like a terminal, but it was a PCW, but it was actually a perfectly capable computer, and it ran CP/M.
Yes,
which was an early operating system.
A vague relative of that my father bought two of. At a computer show in the probably 70s, 80s vibe. I'm not sure when we're vaguely there. He ran some bespoke software that my brother, who was considerably better at coding than I was, wrote him to manage a licensed credit brokering business. He was the only Jew ever to be in licensed credit brokering. It's incredible. Money lending, some people call it. But my brother wrote this piece of software back in the 80s, and it's still running on my dad's laptop.
I'd be interested to know what he ran it in, because that had a good base. I'm sure one of the 10,000 people listening correctly. But it had a thing called Mallard Basic, which was a really tasty flavour of Basic, as I recall.
I mean, I can't remember, but I remember porting it and managing to get it into a DOS-esque format.
And this is on the PCW, right?
Yes.
With its 3-inch disk drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very strange idea.
Very odd indeed. But, I mean, they kept those going for years.
But, I mean, to talk about misunderstanding things as well, like, why go and invent your own bloody disk drive? All you need to do, if you really want to obfuscate stuff, I think probably because he wanted to sell the media, which was a daft idea. But why, if you really want to keep stuff just into that system, just make a weird format for an existing thing? But they didn't, did they?
No.
I'm sure nothing else used those discs.
There
was
is
strange. And I think they were 180k or something odd like that.
There is a Samsung television that sadly I might have to get you to swap a capacitor on, because I was gifted it and it just kind of went into sulk mode the other night. Right. And it's got a proprietary, it's a bridge TV from God knows how long ago, but it's full 1080 with a great panel. And it's got this proprietary Panasonic USB thing that isn't a USB on it.
Oh, really?
I can't even remember what it's called. I think they sort of tried it.
Was it like part of there so you could link it with other Panasonic
and it's got a sound bar with it. They kind of
okay.
taken their own. They thought, let's write our own little Bluetooth. It's
probably got a silly name like Panny Link or something.
Something. Yes, indeed. Panasonic, interesting company, man.
Yes, yeah.
I've always trusted them for lenses and video equipment. They have never let me down on prosumer and higher end consumer video products, but now, and my little brain almost understands it, I can't see much that beats, and I hate saying it, the iPhone camera system in the latest LiDAR representations of it.
I think as consumer cameras go, especially one that you're carrying around with you, they are just probably the best out there.
Well, there's just nothing. I
don't
read a
think
recent review.
anything really competes with them.
No, of even people saying that, compared to if you're going into like sort of videographer mode and you don't want to you're going 4K but not going to red or whatever, then actually I'd spend the price of one Blackmagic body, which is a fabulous kit, by the way. Maybe just get just a couple of iPhones.
But then the top iPhone is $1,000, don't forget.
Exactly, yeah. But you get a phone with it as well. I mean, I would go the Blackmagic.
It's nice of them to throw in that. What is a phone exactly?
Yeah, a telecommunications. The thing they had in Star Trek that tells you that you're on the land of rocks.
When you used to speak to people, that sort of thing.
Star Trek inspired a lot of things, man.
Well, it did. Sci-fi's got, sci-fi's always...
Sci-fi is about the future.
The pot of tech, isn't it?
Yeah, the future through the eyes of the now.
If you can imagine it.
All sci-fi's about next week.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur C. Clarke was one that he sort of inadvertently invented many things, none of which come to mind at the moment.
Satellites.
Satellites as well. Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Clarke Belt, of course. That's
pitched the idea.
For geostationary orbit, isn't it?
Absolutely,
and it's now named after him. That's the most famous one.
Yeah, that's not bad,
The most famous one.
Your old Patrick Moore has got he's got a bit of moon named after him, obviously. And I watched the sky at night hugely when I was a kid. I was a geek, right? There wasn't a lot of channels on as well. And I watched the sky at night, and so I was a big fan of and it's very sad to have that Patrick Moore has departed this world. But he was getting to be a large man at the very end of it. And I thought, is he turning into the moon? Because he had the old monocle and that. I think he's turning into a thing that he loves. He's going to be the moon. And that's not a bad thing, isn't it?
Do you remember Games Master? He did that.
Games Master with he was the Games Master in Games Master.
He was the Games Master, yeah.
Yeah, and the and the journo who was writing for Games Master was in the arena, in the kind of future cyberpunk arena of playing 8-bit games or 16-bit games.
It was
absolutely
cool at the time. It was very cool.
Yeah, man. And who would have thought that you'd watch that for hours on YouTube whilst yaddering about it? Well, it's already there. Patrick Moore, that's who.
Yeah, they were
whilst
doing
playing
that.
the xylophone.
30 years ago. What's wrong with people?
Whilst playing the xylophone and hanging around with Brian May from Queen.
That's your Twitch right there, isn't it?
That is, man.
Yeah.
Brian May from Queen, massive fan. A little bit of an idiot myself. I was aware of things like Bohemian Rhapsody and my I listened to Queen in the house. I didn't know what they looked like. And so I knew Brian May, Dr. Brian May, from The Sky at Night.
Really?
And then, yeah. Just don't judge me.
No, I'm not. I'm just thinking that's a very interesting way to go.
That's how I knew of Brian May. Then I go to this Queen concert, which is it's a kind of magic kind of era Queen concert.
Right.
And I genuinely say the least hip thing that I think any human being said, certainly that I said. What's Dr. Brian May from The Sky at Night doing up there? Is it his birthday?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, man, I got slightly dissed by my peers and contemporaries for it. I was thinking, what the hell? And of course, they went on to write a definitive book. It was him, the guy who is now doing The Sky at Night. I forget the gentleman's name, actually. He's he's great astronomer. He's like The Apprentice to and you've got Brian May, you got that guy, you've got you got
Because Patrick Moore was doing that since he was a very young man, wasn't he?
It was the longest running single presented show ever.
Was it? Oh,
And but they wrote a book together, those three people. And you then think, well, Dr. Brian May, now I've got my calibration. Out of the three of you, which of you actually snorted cocaine off a dwarf's head? I'm going to guess. It's your Dr. Brian May in the corner, isn't it?
Okay, you went for that. Okay.
I went there. Yeah, who invented hip-hop? Out of this room, who invented hip-hop? Hands up, Dr. Brian May.
Oh, dear. Anyway, I can't resist. I've got to play some Queen. All right.
Damn right.
Queen. Tie Your Mother
Dr.
Down.
Brian May rocks the party.
Possibly one of my favourite Queen albums. The best of Queen. And the best of Queen.
It's like Heinz Wolf from the Great Egg Race doing Live Aid.
I just love that show so
It
much.
was a fabulous show, the Great Egg Race.
It was
You
brilliant.
would have to challenge three teams to overcome an engineering problem, usually, and make sure the protection of the egg was safe in its delivery.
Yeah, but that was the whole point. So it was like scrap heap challenge, but it was the same. It was brilliant.
Studio based.
It was
and
fantastic.
now, do you remember? And I was desperately trying to think of his name whilst listening to Dr. Brian May, and it was Magnus Pike. Now it might be before your time.
Magnus Pike. The name.
He had wavy arms. He was like, if you're going to do an impression of Magnus Pike, you wave your arms around.
Sorry, was that the host?
He was a host. He was like a science guy.
Oh, okay.
Who pops up on things, and he was like the slightly crazy, eccentric science guy. It's called Magnus Pike.
I do not remember that.
Ah.
Might have just slightly
And apparently,
predated me.
Depth for Lemmy in Hawkwind.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. It's just as implausible as Dr. Brian May being in damn Queen, as far as I'm concerned. Of course he didn't. Oh, you see why I was baffled?
Yeah.
It's like Johnny Ball teaching
No, that is
Ringo
such a good.
Starr how to play drums.
Such a good story. That is such a good story. That was your discovery of.
Yeah. Did you know, incidentally,
Brian May
just
PhD.
aside, that Johnny Ball did actually teach Ringo Starr how to play drums?
Now you're making it up as well.
Oh, you see, Matt, I'm not Google it. So there are other search engines available. Johnny Ball, who was a redcoat, among many other things,
That seems plausible. Right.
taught Ringo Starr basic drum playing. Johnny Ball created the Beatles. I rest my case. Is IJ making it up or not?
He's not old enough, surely. Or maybe he is. Yeah.
Am I making that, Matthew?
Well, I'm going to Google that later. I'm going
see?
to. I'm going to Google the tits off of that later.
I will pre-accept your apology as ever.
Right, okay. Yes. Okay. I'm
But as for
disbelieving.
Magnus
Disbelieving,
Pike
aren't
being in
I?
Hawkwind, man. What are you, goodness sake, there's a bomb born every minute. I've got a giant bridge outside, so, and it's yours.
Oh, how much do you want for that?
Oh, well, it's yours for a tenner.
Oh,
Hello.
blimey, it's the turn.
Look at that. It's like cocktails in coconuts, man.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah.
taking this. It's just rubbing it in, isn't it, really?
Cheers.
Hello.
Jeff, for goodness
Well, it's
sake.
blowing.
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Steve Ground's just popped into the
It's
studio.
good to
everyone.
see your gloriously expat leathery face.
Yes, that Mr. Gucci. They say I look like an old handbag.
It's a Chesterfield.
Another great show, lads. Yes, I do remember Magnus Pike with the
Magnus
arms.
Pike with the arms and the tash.
Brian May. My Brian May story, just quickly, is when David Barrett was making Men with Ven, driving from Barking Deptford. He actually got Angie, who's married to
Brian.
Dobson, married to Brian.
But share
And
the same haircut.
Yeah, she done what they do, and she done one of the songs, "Snow in Greenwich Park," written by Bill Cliff. And Brian was there, and he said, "Do you need a guitar player?" And I went, "No, you're all right."
But we could really use an astronomer right now.
Yeah. And the other, and Johnny Ball, Zoe's dad, was another. We don't have brilliant blokes on telly anymore, do we? Just have twats.
I
don't we?
miss. We don't have. If you watch Think of a Number, there are a couple of them. It can go from live chemistry experiment to the concept of politics to physics to something to do with humanities in 2 minutes live with no audio.
Think of a number. Was that Johnny Ball?
It was. It's work of genius,
Yeah.
mate.
But then, what about how?
How?
How is-
with your Dude.
Your Jack Hargreaves.
No. He signs off with the how at the end. Come on.
Oh,
That's Harold for now. I want to say
Fred Dinage.
Dinage.
Fred Dinage. And the other one was there was Dr. Miller. He was the other one, and then the woman was Bunty James.
Bunty James.
There you go. Proper
Bunty
programs,
James.
educational programs for children.
Absolutely.
That's
And
what
then
we
tomorrow
should-
as
we
well.
should start
I
doing
wish-
this overnight.
Why don't we do tomorrow as well properly again? Tomorrow as
Yeah.
well was a great show. Great intro, by the way, by Johnny Dankworth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, who was married to
Oh, Cleo
Lane.
Yeah,
Cleo Lane, yeah.
Saucy.
It's all there, isn't it? It's all
It's
there.
all- it's all
in the
there.
mix.
It's
It
all
is
there.
indeed. Anyway, we won't
jazz
hijack
world.
your show anymore, Mrs.
He's got,
Graham. How did we do it?
we got a minute left here. Hang on.
Really?
Yeah,
Is he
yeah,
stealing
yeah,
our time? Is he stealing our
We're
air?
we're getting
No,
paid
just
by
come
the,
in for
by
a
the minute
chat.
here. We're just getting paid by the
Just like that.
Just come in for the chat.
Just thought he'd hop in. That's what he did.
Yeah, I like it. I was going to get me sounds ready, and then but I do like the weird thing about it is you lot, you flip around all over the show. You sort of like I tune in 1 minute and you're talking about chalk, and the next minute you're talking about sort of like Latin speaking dogs.
This is why you need to hang on to every word, Steve. You see, otherwise you
It's
get
trivia.
lost.
We talk
Of course
trivia.
I do. Of course
Which
I
is
do.
which is actually from the Latin trivius, which is the three important things in life. I paraphrase.
Okay, I'll join in again. Salary. Where does the term come from?
Salary, salt.
Correct, Amundo. Yes.
Ah, celery.
The Romans used to pay everyone in salt, and so that was the salary.
Did they?
Yes,
Yeah, man.
and that was
I'd
it. Was
feel a bit- I'd feel a bit cheated there.
not
No,
really.
salt
It was
was like
because you could
salt.
preserve your food with salt. You didn't.
Don't go
Matthew,
hungry.
we haven't always had refrigerators, Matthew, and deep freezers and,
Yeah, they-
and espresso coffee machines.
Sarah Smith says Freddie's still on the house show.
Is
He is.
Yes.